Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatiruttama-shloke bhaktir-bhavati naishtikim krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nanda-gopa-kumaraya govindaya namo namaha. Today we are reading from Canto 2, Chapter 2, named The Lord in the Heart, text 17. It is on the screen. Nayatra kalo nimisham prabhu kutonu deva jagatam ya ishvare ishire nayatra sattvam na rajastamascha navai vikaro namahan pradhanam. I'm reading once again. Nayatra kalo nimisham prabhu Kutonu deva jagatam ya ishire nayatra sattvam narajastamascha navai vikaro namahan pradhanam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. I'll read the synonyms as well. Na, not, yatra, wherein, kalaha, destructive time, animisham, of the heavenly demigods, para, superior, prabhu, controller, kuta, where is there, no, certainly, deva, the demigods, jagatam, the mundane creatures, ye, those, ishire, rules, na, not, yatra, therein, sattvam, mundane goodness, na, not, raja, mundane passion, tama, mundane ignorance, cha, also, na, not, why, na, nor, why, certainly, vikaraha, transformation, na, nor, mahan, the material causal ocean, pradhanam, material nature. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. In that transcendental state of labdopashanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures, and what to speak of the demigods themselves. Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. Purport. Devastating time, which controls even the celestial demigods by its manifestation of past, present, and future, does not act on the transcendental plane. The influence of time is exhibited by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. And these four principles of material condition are present everywhere in any part of material cosmos up to the planet of Brahmaloka, where the duration of life of the inhabitants appears to us to be fabulous. Insurmountable time even brings about the death of Brahma. So what to speak of other demigods like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Vayu, and Varuna? The astronomical influence directed by the different demigods over mundane creatures is also conspicuous by its absence. In material existence, the living entities are afraid of satanic influence, but for a devotee on the transcendental plane, there is no such fear at all. The living entities change their material bodies in different shapes and forms under the influence of different modes of material nature. But in the transcendental state, the devotee is gunatita, or above the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Thus, the false ego of I am the Lord of all I survey does not arise there. The material world, the false ego of living being, trying to lord it over the material nature, is something like the moths falling in the blazing fire. The moth is captivated by the glaring beauty of the fire, and when he comes to enjoy it, the blazing fire consumes him. Sorry. In the transcendental state, the living being is pure in his consciousness, and as such, he has no false ego to lord it over the material nature. Rather, his pure consciousness directs him to surrender unto the Supreme Lord, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. All this indicates that in the transcendental state, there is neither material creation nor the causal ocean of material nature. The above-mentioned state of affairs is factual on the transcendental plane, but is factually revealed in a transcendentalist knowledge of advanced state of pure consciousness. Such transcendentalists are of two types, namely the impersonalists and the devotees. For the impersonalists, the ultimate goal of destination is the Brahmajyoti of the spiritual sky. But for the devotees, the ultimate goal is the Vaikuntha planets. The devotees experience the above-mentioned state of affairs by attainment of spiritual forms for activity in transcendental loving service of the Lord. But the impersonalist, because of his neglecting the association of the Lord, does not develop a spiritual body for spiritual activity, but remains a spiritual spark only, merged in the effulgent spiritual rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is full-fledged form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, but the formless Brahmajyoti is simply eternity and knowledge. The Vaikuntha planets are also forms of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, and therefore the devotees of the Lord who are admitted into the abode of the Lord also get bodies of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. As such, there is no difference between one and another. The Lord's abode, name, fame, entourage, etc., are of the same transcendental quality, and how this transcendental quality differs from the material world is explained herein within this verse. In the Bhagavad Gita, three principal subjects have been explained by Lord Sri Krishna, namely Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. But one can reach the Vaikuntha planets by the practice of Bhakti Yoga only. The other two are incompetent in helping one reach the Vaikuntha Lokas, although they can, however, conveniently take one to the effulgent Brahmajyoti as described above. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लङ्घायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणम्। Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to the Saturday morning Bhagavatam class. This is a part of series of verses being spoken by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj in the context of a yogi's transcendental attainment. Like, what are the things that a yogi attains? Let us read the translations of the previous two shlokas just for the sake of getting a continuity. So in 2:15, Parikshit Maharaj says, O king, whenever the yogi desires to leave this planet of human beings, he should not be perplexed about the proper time or place, but should comfortably sit without being disturbed, and regulating the life air, should control the senses by the mind. previous sloka, that is 16, it is said, thereafter the yogi should merge his mind by his unalloyed intelligence into the living entity, and then merge the living entity into the super self. And by doing this, the fully satisfied living entity becomes situated in the supreme stage of satisfaction, so that he ceases from all other activities. And that brings us to today's shloka. So, in the transcendental state of Labdhopishanti, there is no supremacy of devastating time which controls even the celestial demigods who are empowered to rule over mundane creatures. And what to speak of the demigods themselves? Nor is there the mode of material goodness, nor passion, nor ignorance, nor even the false ego, nor the material causal ocean, nor the material nature. So basically, what is being explained here, in continuation from the previous two slokas, is the yogi who attains transcendental position. The yogi who desires to leave this world should be sitting in a particular posture or particular state of mind, and then these are the characteristics of that kind of state of mind. Those are being explained here. Here he says, Sukadeva Goswami says that there is no supremacy of devastating time, and I think Prabhupada in the purport devotes a major portion in the beginning to this particular statement. What is the influence of time? So many times, because of coming into Krishna consciousness through the movement of Srila Prabhupada, we all actually have a tendency to say, Brahman realization is very, very small. We are practicing Bhakti Yoga, and this is much superior. And that is a fact. There is nothing wrong about that statement. Actually, devotional service is considered to be like an ocean of bliss, whereas the Brahman realization is only a drop of it, actually. Rupa Goswami makes this comparison. But then, for a person who is a conditioned living entity, you can see that attaining Brahman realization itself is like a huge attainment. It is like just by reading these characteristics of what he is going to get, even we become inspired to attain this in that sense. Although Sukadeva Goswami does not directly describe about Bhakti Yoga here, he's speaking about the Ashtanga Yoga, or he's speaking about that kind of yoga where a person attains samadhi, and there the effect of time does not exist anymore. Although the person is still physically in the material world, the time does not affect him. The modes do not affect him, and the material nature itself doesn't have any effect on such a person. So this is the state of samadhi which is attained in the Ashtanga Yoga process. So we can the 8 limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga process are Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Yama, Niyama are more like rules and regulations, what to do and what not to do. So in devotional service also we have similar things like Rupa Goswami explains them as Anukulyasya Sankalpa, Pratikulyasya Varjanam. And then he explains this Anukulyasya Sankalpa and Pratikulyasya Varjanam in the Nectar of Instruction in 2 shlokas. So what are Anukula and what are Pratikula? The Pratikula are Atyahara Prayasascha, Prajalpo Niyamagraha, Janasangasya Laulyam cha, Shadvidha, Shadbir Bhakti Pranashyati, right? And the Pratikula are also, the Anukula are also explained. Utsaha Nishya Dhairya, Tat Karma Pravartanat. Is that right? No, I don't think so. I think I messed it up. Utsaha Nishya Dhairya. That is the verse which actually Rupa Goswami says, which are anukula for devotional service, and there are pratikula for devotional service, just like yama niyama. And then in devotional service, there are activities that are performed for the pleasure of the Lord. In fact, uh, uh, the the first verse of the first important prominent verse of Nectar of Devotion explains about what are the 6 characteristics of devotional service. One of the characteristic is that it is performed for the pleasure of Krishna, right? So a yogi has a kind of an Ashtanga yogi, or even a karma yogi, or anyone else other than bhakti yogis. They have a goal which is kind of selfish goal. Why I am saying it is selfish, although it is much much superior than any of the mundane selfishness, is because um, is because even there a person is looking for his own liberation, right? um, so with that goal, a karma yogi performs his activities, and Krishna explains that the perfection of such karma yoga is to do everything for the pleasure of Krishna, right? Similarly, an Ashtanga yogi also performs, although it is said in Bhagavad Gita that Ashtanga yogi refrains from all kinds of activities, like from starting from Jnana yoga or Jnana. In the yoga ladder, if we see up to Jnana Yoga, there is no question of taking sannyas. Only a person who is Jnana Yogi, he is qualified to take karma sannyas. And our Shastras say that in Kali Yuga, karma sannyas is rejected. Sannyasam palapaitrukam, it is said. So in that sense, we can understand that in today's society, or in Kali Yuga, we don't find any Jnana Yogis or Ashtanga Yogis. It's rare. So we can see that a Jnana Yogi refrains from all sorts of material activities, and also same with the Ashtanga Yogi also. They have slight differences in their they have some differences in their sadhana process, right? So a Jnana Yogi does a lot of mental speculation on the Shastra, and an Ashtanga Yogi practices various yogic postures, but the goal of both of them is to control their mind. So a Jnana Yogi controls his mind through mental speculation, and an Ashtanga Yogi controls his mind through various asanas, or controlling the life airs within the body. And after attaining this, after being fixed in the state of samadhi, or after being fixed in the state of controlled mind, then a person starts um, uh, actually meditating upon the impersonal feature of the Lord. In Ashtanga Yoga, at least there is the presence of the personal form of the Lord, whereas in Jnana Yoga, the goal is to merge in the Brahman effulgence of the Lord, right? So, but a Bhakti Yogi, actually, he actually need not go through so much struggle to control his own mind. It is just that a Nishkam Karma Yogi, he he does activities just out of the just for the sake of duty, and the Bhakti Yogi performs similar activities for the pleasure of Krishna. So when we start acting for the pleasure of Krishna, that means um, when our goal is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind comes under control. So that's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga. So mind control is a byproduct of practicing Bhakti Yoga. Although it is very easy to say, it's very difficult to realize this in reality, in our day-to-day activities. We are also said many times that you have to control your mind, right? That is, Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita that mind control is the basic step, foundational step for any kind of yoga process. So, but then Bhakti Yoga process actually facilitates the mind control much easily compared to the other yoga processes. That is what I intend to say, actually. So here, for a Ashtanga yogi, a person who is practicing Ashtanga yoga or Jnana yoga, he's leaving this world, and how he situates himself or places himself so that there is no effect of time on him is being described. Now we'll see how time is affecting everything in this material world. We all have experience of it. If we were not to read Srila Prabhupada's purports, we wouldn't have realized that, because no one in this world realizes the influence of time upon oneself, right? We see that everyone around us are, they are on the path of death. So Prabhupada writes in the first chapter of the second canto, in the first few verses, he writes there, like everyone is actually here in the material world temporarily flapping for some time, right? So we all see that, death is taking over everyone, including us. But then when it comes to us, sometimes, when we are in an ignorant state of mind, it is very difficult to realize this, because everyone by default thinks that, all other people will die, but I won't die. Mm. I will somehow remain forever here. So that's the what to say, deep inside the consciousness, that is how a person thinks, right? And that is nothing wrong on his part. That is the nature of the living entity, to remain forever, or to be alive forever, right? Eternity, sat, is the feature of the living entity. And that's why exhibiting or being real or being situated in that feature is not something new to the living entity. But the problem is the material nature does not allow us to remain there. Because we equate ourselves with the material existence. We equate ourselves with the material body, or we equate ourselves with the mind, or with the intelligence, or with the false ego. And because of that equating, we become frustrated. Why? Because all these things are material, material products. They are coming from the pradhana, and they actually are temporary. That's the nature of all these things. Either body, mind, intelligence, all these things are temporary. And because of their temporary nature, and because we think that we are that, and when that is lost, we feel like we have lost our existence. So and that is eventual. That is going to happen for everyone. It's not that by mistake or by some miscalculation of material nature, somebody has lived for, let us say, 2000 years. It never happened like that. I mean, 2000 number is for Kali Yuga. Even in the other ages, we can see that people may have very long durations of life, but then they are not infinitely long. They are not indefinitely long, in fact, right? There is, even for the first created living entity in this universe, Brahma, time influences him. Although it is said that once you go to the planets of Sargaloka or anything beyond that, it is said, like, the influence of birth, death, old age, disease stops to exist. We read this statement. I was kind of bewildered when I read this in certain places in some of the Prabhupada's books. I mean, the Sanskrit shloka clearly says that. Even Prabhupada writes that several places, that the influence is ceases to exist, the birth, death, old age, and disease. Then I was thinking, like, are these Vaikuntha planets? But then Prabhupada clarifies, says that no, no, these are not Vaikuntha planets. There is also death, there is also old age, there is also disease. But the thing is, like, I was checking about this with one of my teachers. He said that as soon as a person becomes old in the Swargaloka, for example, as soon as a person gives birth to a baby in the Swargaloka, then he is considered old, and he doesn't have any place anymore in the Swargaloka. He's thrown out of the Swargaloka, and he has to find some other shelter now, right? So that's why in the Swargaloka they have, like, long durations, and a person is considered, just like in the material, in the earthly planets, there are certain features that are described for old people, isn't it? Like the hair starts graying, not only here, everywhere else. Then tooth fall off. Angam palitam galitam mundam dashana vihinam jatum tundam Vruddho yanti grahitva dandam tadapi na munchati asha pindam. This is spoken by Shankaracharya. He says that, teeth start falling off, angam galitam. Angam galitam, the limbs actually melt. Palitam mundam, hair fall off, right? Dashana vihinam jatum tundam, become, uh, teeth fall off and one becomes ugly looking. Dashana vihinam jatum tundam, vruddha yanti grihitva dandam. As we grow old, our third leg comes, that is a stick in the hand, right? Because we cannot support our own body. Tadapina munchati asha pindam. It says like, even in that stage, a person does not get automatically rid of material desires. One has to work upon giving up material desires. So Shankaracharya says that. So these are the characteristics of old age in the earthly planets. Similarly, the characteristics of old age in the Swarga planet is that as soon as a person gives birth, he is considered old. That's why in Swarga there is unlimited enjoyment, even of the relationship between a man and a woman, and they have a power to control childbirth and other such things, right? So they don't want to get old because they will be kicked out of Swarga if they become old. And then of course there are other powerful living entities there, like Indra and other demigods. Now, I'm speaking about a common living entity, normal living entity who enters Swarga because of his karma phala. But then there are other powerful demigods who are all there in the Sargaloka, but then their duration of life is also fixed. Just like we see Manu changes 14 times in the day of Brahma, and that is called a Manvantara, right? 14 times he changes in the day of Brahma. Similarly, in each Manvantara, there are fixed time periods for so many demigods. So this also goes to show that the highest planet, that is the Brahmaloka, that is also influenced by time. So Brahma's lifespan is described in the Bhagavad Gita, right? 311 trillion years, 40 billion years, something like that, with as per the Earth year calculations. So what does it mean? After that, Brahma is also going to die, but his death may not be like how we die in the material world, in the earthly planets. His death may be different, but then he has to give up his body and then take another body if he is not a pure devotee. But then generally Brahma is a pure devotee of the Lord. Generally, it's not all the time. And then he actually goes back to the spiritual world. So at least for our Brahma, it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam that he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, and he has his own sampradaya in which we all come because come in that sampradaya. So we can understand that even Brahma actually gives up his body. What to speak of us from Brahma's perspective? It is something like, looking at earthly beings is something like, we also see some insects around us, like sometimes in the summer we see in the evening outside we see these fireflies actually, some of them actually die off by morning. Not only fireflies, there are many other creatures. They don't even see the light of the sun. They take birth in the night. They have their whole 100 years, relative 100 years in the night itself, and they die before the sunrise. And they don't even get to see the sun. So their lifespan is so small, and we think that, oh, they are living for such a short span of life. But then for them it is like fulfilling 100 years for them, right? Because they have their own growth. The 6 changes occur in their body: birth, growth, then production of byproducts, maintenance, and then dwindling and death. So these all happen within such a short span, and this is relative. From Brahma's perspective, we are like that, or from Indra's perspective, we are like that. We just take birth and we die, just like a small insect. So time is relative and time is destructive. These are the two characteristics, prominent characteristics of time. Time is relative and time is destructive, and time is destroying everything. Everything that we see in this material world is in the process of destruction. We may not realize it. We may think that, okay, I purchase one gold ornament and this is going to stay forever. No, it is not going to stay forever. Maybe it will stay through some generations, just like we get some ornaments from our elders. So uh, they may stay for some generations, but then time is in the process of destroying everything around us. The sun that we see in the sky is also undergoing the influence of time. He is also on the path of destruction. And the moon that we see is also on the path of destruction. What to speak of small things like our home or our country or our nation? These are all going to be destroyed. The oceans are going to dry up because of the influence of time. So that's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kalosmyaham Loka Kshayakrit. So he says that I am the devastating time in the material world. So this is very interesting. Krishna wants to give every living entity a realization of him, right? Of his energy, actually. So in the material world, people refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna comes in front of them as eternal Kala. So lifetime, then Krishna comes and stands in front of us as death personified, right? So when Krishna comes and stands in front of us as death personified, we do not have any answer to the question, right? We simply have to surrender. We have no other choice. So time has the devastating effect. So it is said every rising and setting of the sun actually takes away some portion or steals away actually, some portion of our ayurdaya, some portion of our lifespan. And that is the uh, influence of time. We don't realize it is very subtle. We have already lost so many such moments, so many such days and years we have already lost, and they cannot be brought back. Time is something like a bank account. Every day you get so many hours, so many minutes, so many seconds, but the rule of this is that you have to use them before they it is something like you have a bank account and you are given so many seconds or so many rupees into your or dollars into your bank account. And the condition is that you have to use it as soon as it comes into your into your hand actually, otherwise it is taken away. So you may be millionaire, but what is the point? Like, if it is taken away, if you don't utilize it and it is taken away, then it is as good as not having it, right? So similarly, time also is something like that. You are being given the opportunity or the time to do something which can actually liberate us from the cycle of birth and death. And if we don't utilize the time for that purpose, then time has a reverse effect on us. That is, it is taking away our ayurdaya, our lifespan. And when that is totally taken away, one fine day, it's not so fine day, the final day actually, that day we realize that it has come now. I have no other choice. I have to surrender. But then a person who is advanced in his consciousness, he is waiting for that day. He is not ignorant of that day. He is waiting for that day. He's thinking that, okay, this is a changing phase, and if I just pass through this changing phase, I will be given eternal life. That's the realization of a person who is advanced in his consciousness. Whether it is a Jnana Yogi, Ashtanga Yogi, or Bhakti Yogi, their destinations are different, but then they all will experience eternity commonly. Sorry. So for them, they are just waiting. They are not like ignorant like all of us. I'm not saying everyone in the uh, who is attending this class is ignorant. I would say, ignorant like me. Change that statement. So everyone, most of the people in the material world are ignorant to the fact that time is actually consuming our lifespan. That we are ignorant of, and that's why we become bewildered when the final day comes, right? We become bewildered. We think that, hey, I did not think it will come so fast. I did not think it will come so quickly. So in one of the lectures which I was hearing, uh, it is said that the experience of time is also relative to not only, to different living entities. We have different experience of the how the time progresses, but then the experience of time even for human beings is relative depending on their age. Like a child thinks that this time is never going to come to an end, because he has more such feeling of okay, I have so much time and I don't know what to do in that time. And that's why they feel like, oh, elders are doing so many things, I'm not doing anything. I want to grow up so I can also do so many things. But then when we come to middle age, the experience of time actually changes. Mm. And when we grow older, the more we grow older, the more we feel like time is passing away so fast. Right? In the childhood, we feel like 1 hour time is something like, such a long duration of time. Uh, but as we grow, we understand what, at this age, we understand that 1 hour is nothing actually. And as we grow older, this feeling is going to increase more and more. At that time, we feel like, one day is nothing. It just comes and goes, right? So that is how a living entity experiences the relativity of time, even in one lifetime. Mm. And then when the final day comes, there is a notice. There are many notices given to us before death comes and knocks on our door. We are given gray hair. We are given, wrinkles on our body. All these are actually notices from Yamaraj. He says, please be ready. This is one more notice being served. Please be ready. But then we just neglect. We think that, oh no, these are, I'm growing old, but I'm not so old that I will die immediately. We think like that. Even an 80-year-old man thinks the same way, right? If he's not realized actually. At that time, what happens one fine, as I said, I don't want to call it as a fine day, it is a final day actually. At that time, Yamaraj comes and just takes us away. Mhm. At that time, we realize, "Arre baapre, I did not think it is going to be so quick. It is not. It is going to be so fast. Now I am already on my deathbed." And there is no point, realizing it at that time, because we have already lost everything by that time, right? So, a person who is in samadhi, he understands the influence of time, and he actually prepares. He actually prepares to get out of the influence of time. Again, when I say samadhi, it is not something which is only pertaining to a Ashtanga yogi. Even a bhakti yogi, while performing activities for the pleasure of Krishna, is considered to be in samadhi. Right? He's literally in samadhi. Hmm. Although samadhi word is very technically used for an Ashtanga yogi, samadhi can be obtained by any kind of any yogi actually. Any sincere yogi can attain samadhi in his own right. So one who attains samadhi, he understands that he just waits. When is this going to end? Because he has already realized what is his next destination. He has already realized what is going to what is the bliss that he is going to experience after he goes out of this temporary domain of time, right? Because human body gives us some kind of experience of time. Mm. But then a person who realizes that he is not this body, the influence of time is not there on him. Why it is? Because as I said, it is relative to what we think we are. When we think we are this material body, then we also think that, okay, now I am a child, now I am growing, now I am old, now I am going to die. So that is how our consciousness is, because we think that we are this body. But then a person understands or realizes that he is not the body, then he is acting on the platform of the soul, right? He realizes that he's the soul. He realizes that he's eternal. Then he understands that, okay, my body is growing. That is okay. And one day it will fall off. That is also fine. And that's just like, Krishna explains very simplistic way. He explains, it's just like we change the dress, we change the body also, right? When we change the dress, we don't feel, oh, this dress is going into the washer dryer and all that, right? It is just going to it is, when it is old and torn off, we just throw it in the dustbin, we just throw it in the trash without a second thought, right? Because we realize that this is not me. So similarly, when we realize that the body is not me, then we don't have any problem giving up this body. I simply think, okay, it is coming and going. How is it affecting me? Right? Because we don't know at this point what is that me in truth. That's why we become bewildered. And when we become bewildered, we think that this body is me, because that is what is visible to everyone, and that is what people also tell us, right? Like some time ago, I was sharing it in this Bhagavatam class only. So when a child is born, we say happy birthday, right? So when the child grows every year, you know, we wish happy birthday. So whom are we wishing, or what is happening at the time of, birth, that we wish the child a happy birthday? Are we wishing the soul? For the soul there is no birth, right? So we are not wishing to the wishing our, we are not giving our happy birthday wishes to the soul, definitely. Are we giving it to the body? Body is already dead. So what is birth of body, right? It is just a conglomeration of some material elements, right? So basically, when we say happy birthday, it is nothing but we are we are expressing this thought to celebrate the ignorance. Sorry to say this. We are just trying to celebrate the the ignorance of soul being trapped in the material body. That is what, the misconception, basically. The misconception of considering ourselves to be the body is what is being expressed there. It's not that I'm not saying that, devotees stop wishing each other happy birthday. No, that I'm not saying about that. But philosophically, if we think, what is taking birth there? At the time of birth, what is happening actually? Is it the body that is taking birth? No, body is always dead. Whatever we see here is already dead matter. There is no life in that. Is the soul taking birth? No, soul is also not taking birth, because soul is always eternal, right? It never dies. So what is taking birth is the misconception that the soul is not real and the body is real. That is what is taking birth. And this is the devotee whom I was hearing to is funnily explaining in this way that, we are just celebrating our misconception actually, right? And we say, okay, I'm 40-year-old, I'm 30-year-old, or let us say I'm 15-year-old, whatever it may be. uh, we are actually counting the years of this body. We are not counting the years of the soul. Because for soul, there is, as Prabhupada explains in this verse, there is no conception of past, present, and future, because the soul in its true state is not influenced by time. Hmm? Just like a yogi sitting in samadhi is ready to leave this world, he is not thinking he is this body. If he thinks he is this body, or if he has that kind of understanding, he cannot leave this body, right? Because he is focusing on eternity. How can he leave this body then, if he thinks he is this body? So he is definitely not doing that. He's saying, okay, I have to leave this dress and go and take a better dress, or situate himself in Brahma Jyoti. So that's what he's thinking. So that all depends on what is the level of our realization. And our realization actually comes from our activities, and our realization is also reflected in our activities. So both are true. So if we are simply acting on the platform of material body, then definitely we can understand that our realization is only to the extent that we consider ourselves to be this material body, and that's why we are pampering this body so much. Hmm. So if we are also oriented spiritually, still we may not be realized completely that we are not this body. We are just showing our interest, that I want to understand what is eternity. That's what we are showing interest in. And Krishna actually facilitates that interest, and he gives guru, he gives proper association where we can realize, okay, I am not the body, I am the soul. And when we realize that we are not the body, we are soul, then our bodily necessities will reduce, our bodily activities will reduce, and the activities on the platform of soul increase. Right? That's what is expected to happen. Otherwise, our realization is farce. It has no meaning. It's not that I cannot say that, okay, I realize that I am not this body, I'm soul, but I keep acting on the material platform, on the bodily platform. That doesn't work, right? If you realize that you are not the body, then why are you working for the body alone? It may be needed to keep the body and soul together. That's what we say. It may be needed to work, but then that is not the major activity. That is not the prominent activity of the living entity who has realized that he is not the body, he is soul. He rather acts on the platform of the soul because that is his level of realization, right? So basically, if a person realizes that he is not the body, he is soul, his activities are changed, right? He is not simply working like a namam dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhama maya apahrita jnana asurim bhavam ashritaha. He is not working like that, definitely. He is working on a higher platform. He is understanding that, I'm not the body, I'm soul. What is being visible outside, just like, I remember in my student days when I was staying with devotees, in our center, we have this small mirror because having big mirrors was not allowed there. The reason being that you keep looking at your own body and try to pamper more and more. So there is only one small mirror. If you go and stand in front of that, you can only see this part. So you can apply tilak, and there is something written on top of it. What is that? You are not what you are seeing in the mirror. So that reminds us every day that you are not this body. You are not what you are looking at. You are not what you are thinking to be, right? You are someone different from this. That realization, when it comes, then we also act on that platform. That's why I said that our activities give an insight into what is our level of realization. If you are simply acting, just like when we become new bhaktas, when devotees come and tell that you have to chant 16 rounds, we say, no, 16, because we are still thinking that, no, that is not so important, right? Because we are still having the material conception saying that my job is important, my studies are important, my family is important. Yeah, they are all important. I'm not saying they are not important, right? But then now we are all able to take out time for 16 rounds and sometimes even more, apart from doing seva in the temple, and our material activity has not changed so much, right? We are still taking prasadam 3 times a day, and we are still working 8 to 10 hours every day to earn that prasadam, not only for us, for also our family members, right? We are doing all the same activities, but then we included spiritual activities also, because our realization has changed. Our realization has changed. At least, if we haven't realized that we are not the body, we are soul, at least we are on the path of realizing that. We understand, okay, there is some higher realization that I am hankering for, right? Our spiritual activities actually are showing that, are a mirror of that, actually. The sincerity or the seriousness with which we practice devotional service is nothing but is reflecting the fact that we are hankering to realize our spiritual nature. And once we realize that spiritual nature, and I'm sure most of you might have already realized, once we realize, then the bodily activities go to the background. Why? Because we are not the body anyways, right? It's not that they are neglected, but they are minimized, right? It's not they are neglected, because body is needed. As long as we can live in this body, we should live. Prabhupada says that. It is not neglected, but it is minimized. And when it is minimized, then the spiritual activity becomes prominent. And when spiritual activities become prominent, then the whole results of the spiritual life actually start manifesting in our life, in our own self. At that time, the realization of Atma becomes stronger and stronger. By devotional service, we also realize that not only that I am Atma, we also realize that we are the servant of Krishna. That realization may be at the background for the Ashtanga yogis or Jnana yogis. They may not have that realization. They are simply hankering for the eternity of the soul, or realizing the eternity of the soul. And when they realize that, they act on that platform. They, through the sadhana process, practicing, they attain Brahman realization, right? But for a devotee, Prabhupada very aptly quotes that shloka, Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. If we see what is that, the previous section of that shloka, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakamshati. No, not this one. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. What is that? No, I don't remember. This shloka actually comes as a prelude for a person who actually can attain devotional service. right? So Vasudeva Sarvamiti, that is the consciousness a person develops when he actually starts realizing that he's the sole part and parcel of Krishna. He's a sole servant of Krishna, right? And that is our true nature. So our designations are upadhis that are called, so I'm a man, I'm an Indian, I'm working for this company, I'm an engineer, I'm 35, 40-year-old, whatever it may be, right? So these are all upadhis, and these are all not me. These are all pertaining to the body only, and sometimes to the mind, but not to the soul. When we realize I am the servant of Krishna, I'm soul, I'm servant of Krishna, these are true upadhis, true designations. All other designations are false. And these false designations come because of our association, because of so many other. Yeah, I think, yeah, Kalpataru Mataji, thank you for that. Bahunam Janmanamante Gyanavan Mam Prapatyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlava. Right? So that is the verse which is spoken in Gita by the Supreme Lord. He says that after many, many lifetimes of such practice, like a Jnana Yogi or an Ashtanga Yogi, then a person realizes that, Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Especially this is spoken in the context of Jnana Yoga. So basically, that's the influence of time on all of us, and how we can actually fix our mind. How if we fix our mind in devotional service, then the influence of time actually stops acting upon us, right? Because we realize the eternity of the soul. So with this, I will stop here. It is 8:25 now. If anyone has any questions or comments, I will try to address them to the best of my capacity. Hare Krishna. Okay, no questions, comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu, Lingaraj.
Yeah, thank you. Time on, right? Different individuals, how we see it. Thank you, Prabhu. I think it was nice presentation. So,
Thank
but
you,
yeah, I
Prabhu.
think it even any transcendentalist, right? I mean, the time is kind of. I mean, once they realize to some degree, the time is the influence of time.
Yes.
Not there, right? So even the
Yes.
so it's not that it is less. I mean, I mean, though compared to bhakti, those are not great. As I think that's how we started the class as well. Thank you, Prabhu. I think,
no, eternity is something which is realized by every transcendentalist. So what they do after attaining eternity is the question.
Yeah.
A bhakti yogi does something different, and that's how he is attaining entrance into Vaikuntha planets. The Jnana yogi and Ashtanga yogi is kind of boring in one sense.
But even the Ashtanga Yogi Prabhu, I mean, I don't know what is the destination based on the realization, right? They will go either here or there, right? There's no
Yes. They have like a switch mechanism. You press the switch, they go to Brahman realization. Because in Ashtanga Yogi is a general classification, but there are various sub-classifications inside that. There are people who are after attaining, let us say, pranayama pratyahara stage, there are people who are actually looking for ashtasiddhis. They actually don't, they are like, fallen Ashtanga Yogis, because they don't attain transcendence. They are simply looking for some kind of material benefit out of their yoga practice, right? So Dhyana Yogi and Ashtanga Yogi. So Ashtanga Yogi is a kind of, is a common term which is used, but the Dhyana Yogi is the more appropriate term for a person who is very serious in Ashtanga Yoga. Otherwise, he is just an Ashtanga Yogi and he is simply looking for some material benefit, like, Ashtasiddhis and all other things. And such person is considered to be a fallen Dhyana Yogi. It is like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So if there are no other
comments,
no other comments, then we can close this, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो